Hey everyone, this is Bev, also known as BevNap on DeviantArt, Tumblr, and now YouTube. I have started uploading my speed paints, and now I'm going to be doing a tutorial for you all today. I've been receiving a lot of requests to kind of show my process of how I paint and how I draw or whatever, so this is going to pretty much cover everything. A little bit about myself. I've been drawing for ever since I was little, really, but I didn't get serious about drawing until about 2 years ago. So I've been practicing like almost every day. I draw all the time, and so I thought that I would kind of share my knowledge that I've gained over the few years that I've really been drawing like a ton. So I'll try to give whatever advice I can as we go through this tutorial, and hopefully you guys can find it helpful. So let's get started. So I always start out with a very rough sketch when I start any kind of drawing, because I think of a sketch as like the foundation for your drawing. You gotta have something that you can build whatever you're trying to do off of your drawing, and it doesn't have to be perfect because it's just a sketch. Just kind of put in you don't have to put in a lot of details when you're sketching. I don't try to, unless like I really want to emphasize the details later on. Right here I'm also using a reference. You gotta have references when you're drawing, or else it's gonna be kind of hard if you don't really know what a certain pose looks like, or maybe you're not really good at drawing profiles. I can pretty much draw a profile from memory, but for this certain drawing I used a reference because I really wanted to get his facial details in, and I just really wanted to do a realistic Eren for a long time, and I had to use a reference so I could get the lighting right and everything. So yeah, I'm just putting in the sketch and kind of just working at it here and there. And another thing you'll see me doing is I flip the canvas often. When you flip the canvas, it kind of changes your perspective real quick, because you're looking at it from one way. So another thing, if you're drawing traditionally, on pencil and paper, you can actually flip your canvas just by showing it in a mirror. You can see it opposite way. So that's really helpful to do to fix any mistakes that your eye can't see when you're drawing. You'll notice that you flip it and you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's horrible looking, because it happens to me often. If I don't flip the canvas, I'll be like, okay, that looks a little strange, I need to fix that. So that's a really important thing to do when you're first putting a sketch, because you want to make sure your foundation's good before you start building on top of that and coloring and all that, because you really don't want to. It's way more difficult to change things later on, especially when you've already done coloring it, than when you're first starting out with a sketch. So yes, make sure that everything looks okay before you start doing any line art or coloring with your sketch. That's basically all I have to say about sketching. And now you can see I'm going into the line art. Line art is basically cleaning up everything that looks kind of messy. Some artists like to leave their art messy, and sometimes I do like to just leave my pieces just as a sketch and I color that if I really like the sketch. But other times when I really want to clean it up and put some really intricate details and everything, then I will go ahead and do line art over it. And I have to say truthfully, I don't think line art is my favorite thing to do. It's kind of boring, but it also it adds a lot to your art piece. It'll make things clearer for people to see. A lot of people ask how I draw hair. I don't really I can't really explain how I draw hair. It's just crazy. Hair is so movable. You gotta understand, like, even a little bit of wind can move your hair. So the more movable you make hair look, the more realistic it's gonna look. Even long hair, it kind of flows. Make it really like swirly. Just go crazy with it. Don't think too much about drawing hair. Just make it look as crazy as you can. That's my best advice I can get for making hair. And with Eren's hair, he has crazy ass hair. It's very spiky in certain places and then crazier in other places. So I tried to transfer that into a more realistic setting when I was drawing this. And I wouldn't say this drawing is completely realistic. It's more semi-realism, which a lot of people are attracted to. And I'm attracted to semi-realism. I'm inspired by a lot of artists that do a lot of semi-realistic paintings and drawings, because it's in between realism and fantasy, and it's just really cool. It's basically what Final Fantasy is. It's just semi-realistic come to life. So those characters appeal to a lot of people. So yeah, I'm just kind of putting in the line art, and I like to pay attention to things like eyes, because I love drawing eyes, and when I do line art over that, I will pay attention to a lot of details with the eyes. I'm even getting in tiny little creases around the eye, and eyelashes, of course, because if you don't have eyelashes on your characters, even male characters have eyelashes, you know. A lot of people tend to think that, you know, just don't draw lips on males or don't draw eyelashes because that makes them more manly. No, it makes them look weird, so you gotta add eyelashes and lips on male characters as well. And the eyebrows, of course, because Eren has those very thick and intense, fierce eyebrows that you cannot forget to add. So here I'm spending a lot of time on them. I think I like messed up on them, so I had to redo them. Yep. See, I was like really paying attention to those eyebrows, so I wanted to make them look good. So yeah, I pay attention to a lot of important details when I'm doing line art, because I really want to clean it up and make it look nice for when I color it. Again, I'm still flipping the canvas, even though I've already set the sketch in. Flipping the canvas is a good idea when you're even doing line art. And for me, it's just my personal style. I like to add like little lines here and there, even though it's still line art. Like it's just kind of my own style, and you'll develop your own style as you go along. Like basically an artist style is just you're stealing styles from other artists and making it your own. Like that's how I feel like styles are. You get inspired by someone, you see their style, you're like, oh, that's really cool. So you take elements from people's style and you put it together and you make your own. So that's basically what I've done. I've been inspired by a lot of digital artists on DeviantArt. I'm always like stalking other artists and you know, finding new ways to do things. Alright, so now I am going into the coloring process. You can see right here I'm making a palette, and it looks like a freaking tan caterpillar, but you know, yeah, I'm making a palette of what I'm going to use, you know, what colors I'm going to use in the painting. And that's really important, I think, if you are kind of confused about colors. I wouldn't say I'm confused about colors, but it's just like a guide for me, you know, like, okay, what colors am I going to stick with? And you take those colors and you pretty much use each of those colors throughout the whole painting, and that really gives you a balance in your painting, and it makes it look really good. Like even the green that I'm only using as eyes, I could have gone back over there and put more green for lighting, and it would have made it look even cooler, which I didn't, but you could, because when you have that palette and you have that concrete palette, the colors that you're going to use, you can use them anywhere and it's going to look cool. Trust me, because I've used palettes so many times. I make my own palettes. You can find palettes online if you don't know how to make a palette yet, and there's plenty of tutorials on how to use colors like that. And even when you're changing the value in your color, you know, light to dark, you want to make sure you keep the saturation up, because if you don't, it's going to make your painting look muddy. So you definitely want to turn up the saturation when you're changing from light to dark, especially on skin tones, because skin tones, you either have a red undertone or like a pinkish undertone, or you have a yellowish undertone. And when you're changing values from light to dark, you want to keep that in mind with skin undertones. And there's so many different skin types, so I haven't even practiced painting totally with different skin types, because you even have fluorescent skin types where it's very, very white and the light can shine through it, but it looks like the way the light shines through it makes it look very unique. So there's a lot to study with skin and lighting, and there's a ton of tutorials online for that, which I'm always looking at new tutorials for art and digital art. And that's kind of how I've expanded my knowledge with digital art, is just by looking at a lot of tutorials online. And this is like the first time I've made a tutorial for anyone to see, so I'm hoping that this is going to help anyone out kind of starting with digital art. Oh, and if any of you didn't know already, I'll put every like program that I've used, but I'm using Paint Tool Sai in here right now, and I like to stick with Paint Tool Sai because it's a really easy program to start out with, I think. I started using Photoshop CS6 for painting lately, but I still go back to Paint Tool Sai because it just has a lot of brushes that are just amazing. Like, for instance, the watercolor brush, you just kind of paint and you blend a little bit. And that's another thing about painting that I do is when you keep in mind that when you're painting and you're adding like shadowing here and there, you don't want to overblend your painting, because if you overblend, it's gonna look like just you spilt water all over your painting. Like you want to be able to still indicate that you put shadowing there. So for instance, I'll put like a little bit of color with the brush, like I'll put a dark shade, and then I'll take the watercolor brush and just barely blend it, like very little. And I like to work from dark to light. Some artists like to work from light to dark. For instance, you color the skin very light and you know, put shadowing over it later. I like to work from dark. I make the skin very dark at first, and then I work light and light, because I think of terms of, like, you know, how the light is hitting. I don't think of how shadows are hitting, which you can do it however way you want, but that's how I like to do it. So for that, yeah, I like to work from dark to light. And that seems to work for a lot of other artists too. So if you want to try that out, you know, that could work. See, I already made the hair dark and I'm adding lighting on top of it. And you can do that with a digital painting. You can't really do that in traditional art, because, you know, if you got black paint on your canvas, you try to put white over it, it's going to make it gray, right? But you can do that with digital art because, you know, you have layers. You make layers over it and you can put the lighting over it. So yeah, that works perfectly for digital art, and that's why I love digital art, because you can do so much with it. And it's my main medium, actually. I don't do a lot of traditional art as much as I used to, so I work digitally mainly now. With this, I'm just adding more and more lighting. I keep putting more lighting on there and kind of fixing up little details here and there. Yeah, so not much to say about this. Right here, I'm putting like a sort of film, like a warm colored film over him, and I did that by using a clipping layer, and I changed the opacity very low so that, you know, it's not totally opaque over his skin, because you don't want that, you won't be able to see it. And I added another layer of shadowing, which is very, very dark blue, and then you know, change the opacity so it's very light, and that makes it like a shadow, because shadows are cool, and you can make warm shadows, but a lot of shadows that you normally see are cool. And over that layer, I'm adding lighting, or highlighting. I'm highlighting his face, I'm highlighting all the features. I'm still using the reference because you know, certain lighting, I'm still studying lighting as an artist, so it's a good idea to have references so you know how to put in that lighting. Even little tiny details like the eye, you know, like your eyes are very wet, so you want to make sure that you add a lot of detail on the eyes. I mean, not to the point where it looks like they're crying, but you want to add a little bit of lighting in the eyes if you want them to pop, at least. Even with the lips too, because your lips can be more, you know, wetter than the rest of your body, so you want to add like a little bit of more lighting there, because anything that's wet is going to pick up more of lighting and highlighting. So that's an important thing to do when you're drawing facial features. And for me, I always like, of course, paying attention to the eyes a lot. I'm always adding lots of detail to the eyes, because people tend to pay attention to eyes a lot when they look at a person, so I figured I would add a lot of detail to that when I'm painting. And here I'm just kind of fixing up everything, you know, turning on and off my layers to see, like, oh, do I really need this layer, or is it look okay? I mean, that's a good thing, is like you just keep looking at your painting and seeing, like, okay, what can I add next? Does it need to be add anything? And don't feel like you have to make a painting perfect, because you really don't. And that's a problem that I had to get past as an artist. It's like trying to perfect every single thing, and it doesn't work like that. You can't be perfect with your art. Just try your best, and you know, it'll end up the way you want it to. Sometimes when you're not trying your hardest, that's how things turn out for the best. So here we are, we have our finished product. All I did was I changed the lighting a little bit in Photoshop CS6. I moved the position of his eye because it was a little off, so I had to change that. But yeah, this is basically what I ended up with, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. And please leave a like and maybe subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Bye bye.